You've probably noticed it already. You open Windows 11, go to click something in the Start menu, and there it is. An ad for something you didn't ask for, from a company that already owns the operating system you're running. And the frustration is completely justified, because this is a deliberate shift in how Microsoft sees Windows and how they're now willing to monetize it. This is what happened in the weeks leading up to early February 2026. Reports started flooding in from users across Windows 11, and the pattern was undeniable. Promotional content, sponsored recommendations, and outright ads were appearing in spaces that were previously neutral. The Start menu, which has been the launching point for Windows since the 1990s, had become real estate for advertising. And what makes this worse is that it's happening at the same time. Microsoft is rolling out their 26H1 update, which creates a two-tier Windows experience based on your hardware. So now you've got this situation where legacy users are losing features, being pushed toward expensive new hardware, and on top of all that, they're getting increasingly more aggressive advertising. Let's see what's happening here, why it matters, and what this tells us about where Microsoft is taking Windows. For decades, Windows has worked on a straightforward business model. You buy the operating system, or you get it with a computer purchase, and you use it. Companies like Microsoft made their money from licenses, from business tools, from cloud services. Windows itself was the platform that enabled those other revenue streams. It wasn't treated as an advertising vehicle. That's changing, and the acceleration started about a year and a half ago with smaller announcements that most people either missed or dismissed as minor updates. Suggested apps in the Start menu, promoted content in the notification area, shopping recommendations mixed into search results. Each one individually seems insignificant, but together, they paint a picture of systematic monetization of the user experience itself. What happened in February 2026 is that Microsoft stopped hiding it. They didn't bury these ads in obscure settings. They put them front and center in the most frequently accessed part of Windows. When you open the Start menu, you're not just seeing your apps anymore, you're seeing what Microsoft or their partners want you to see. The space is shared. And, for a lot of users, that feels like a betrayal of what Windows is supposed to be. The technical details matter here. These aren't just visually appearing ads. There's infrastructure behind them. Tracking, analytics, and personalization algorithms. When you see an ad in the Start menu, Windows is collecting data about whether you clicked it, how long you looked at it, what time of day it appeared, and whether you were actively looking for that type of product. That data becomes valuable to advertisers and Microsoft. But it's your system, and you never explicitly agreed to have it repurposed as an advertising platform. The timing here is significant, and it's unlikely to be coincidental. The 26H1 update represents the most dramatic shift in Windows philosophy in years. Microsoft is splitting Windows into two distinct versions. The premium version, running on Snapdragon X2 and NVIDIA N1 chips, gets the full agentic AI experience with all the newest features. The legacy version, running on traditional Intel and AMD hardware, gets left behind. You're stuck on an older core, older features, and now, as it turns out, with more aggressive advertising. This creates a financial incentive structure for Microsoft. If you're running Windows on older hardware, you're generating advertising revenue. You're a user they can monetize through ads, because you're not the target for the premium features anyway. But if you upgrade to an ARM-based Snapdragon or NVIDIA system, you get a cleaner experience. You get the full feature set. You get treated like a premium user. Now, Microsoft hasn't explicitly stated this is their strategy, but the math works out pretty clearly, and from a business perspective, it's brilliant. You've found a way to push users toward expensive hardware upgrades while simultaneously monetizing the users who stay on older systems through advertising. The specific ads people are seeing vary. Some users report seeing promoted apps that aren't installed on their system. Some see shopping recommendations bundled into the Start menu, with direct links that probably generate affiliate revenue somewhere in Microsoft's ecosystem. Some see notifications that look like system messages, but are actually advertisements disguised with official-looking branding. One of the more aggressive examples involved pinning sponsored apps to the Start menu without asking. Users who had never interacted with certain applications would suddenly find them pinned in their most used section, taking up space that could be filled with their own apps. It's not a glitch, it's a deliberate insertion of commercial content into a personal interface. What makes this worse is the deceptiveness of how it's presented. These ads often look like they could be system features or recommendations. They use interface elements that match Windows styling. Some of them are buried in notifications, where most people don't look closely at what's actually being promoted. If you're not paying attention, you might think you're clicking on a Windows feature when you're actually clicking on an ad. The lack of transparency around this is where people are getting genuinely angry. The introduction of these ads coincides with the push for agentic AI features, which are described as tools that understand your context and can predict what you need. But that understanding requires even more data collection. The more advanced Windows becomes, the more data it needs to collect. This situation has sparked a real conversation among tech people about what an operating system should be and who gets to make decisions about it. For a long time, Windows was positioned as an open platform. You buy a computer with Windows, and it's your computer. You can install what you want, remove what you don't want, and change the settings to your preference. It's not elegant, but it gives you control. Increasingly, Windows is being repositioned as a managed platform, more similar to iOS or Android. In those mobile ecosystems, you're not really owning the device the same way. You're using a device that the manufacturer controls, with software that the manufacturer curates. The manufacturer can push updates without asking. They can surface content they want you to see. They can monetize the experience in ways you don't fully control. Some people don't mind that. For mainstream users who don't want to tinker with settings and just want a computer that works, that level of control is fine. But Windows has traditionally been the operating system for people who do care about control. Gamers who want to optimize system settings. Business users who need specific configurations. Tech enthusiasts who like to know exactly what's running on their machine. Those users are starting to feel like Windows is drifting away from them. And that creates an incentive for people to look at alternatives. Linux is already seeing renewed interest. Some people are genuinely considering switching to Macs, even though they've traditionally been Windows users. Others are sticking with older versions of Windows, like Windows 10, which feels like it still belongs to users rather than to Microsoft. You might think this is just about annoyance, just some ads in a start menu that you can turn off if you dig through enough settings. Why get upset about it? It's just ads. But there are real consequences to what Microsoft is doing here. First, there's the precedent it sets. Once a company successfully embeds advertising into an operating system, once users accept it as normal, the door opens for more aggressive ads. Ads in more places. Ads that become harder to disable. Each step up happens slowly enough that it doesn't trigger massive backlash. But over time, the experience degrades significantly. Second, there's the incentive structure it creates for Microsoft's decision-making. If advertising is a revenue stream for Windows, then Microsoft's decisions about features, design, and updates will increasingly be influenced by how they affect advertising. They might design interfaces that make ads more noticeable. They might slow down or deprecate features that block ads. They might collect more data by default, making ads more targeted and more valuable. The pressure to maximize advertising revenue will reshape the product itself. Third, there's the data collection problem. Aggressive advertising requires aggressive data collection, and while Microsoft's data collection practices have safeguards, they're not absolute. Data gets exposed in breaches. Data gets kept longer than users expect. Data gets used in ways that weren't clearly disclosed. When you're collecting massive amounts of information about billions of users, some of that information is going to end up in places it shouldn't be. That's just statistics. Fourth, there's the security angle. Any advertising infrastructure that allows Microsoft to remotely push content to user systems also allows attack vectors. If an attacker compromises Microsoft's ad serving system, they could potentially push malicious content to millions of Windows machines automatically. The system that displays ads is also a system that could, if compromised, display malware. That's a real risk that comes with having a built-in advertising platform. The practical advice is straightforward, and it's the same advice tech people have been giving for a while. First, if you're on Windows 10 and your system is stable, there's no urgent reason to upgrade. Windows 11, especially with 26H1, is increasingly becoming an advertising platform. Windows 10 still exists, it still receives security updates, and it doesn't have these start menu ads. Staying on Windows 10 is a defensible choice right now. Second, disable what you can. Go into Windows settings. Turn off personalization. Disable recommendations. Restrict tailored experiences. Turn off the advertising ID that allows advertisers to track you across Windows. Disable Cortana if you don't use it. These individual settings don't completely eliminate data collection, but they reduce it. And they can reduce the targeted advertising to some degree. Third, be aware that the full solution isn't available within Windows itself. You're fighting against a system that's designed to collect data and show ads. The settings Microsoft provides are designed to feel like they give you control, while actually reserving the right to continue most collection and advertising. For real control, you'd need to use more aggressive tools, and some of those exist but are technically complex. Fourth, consider whether this is the right ecosystem for you going forward. If you use Windows for specific reasons, that's fine. But if you're open to alternatives, exploring Linux or Mac OS might be worth your time. The grass isn't always greener. Every operating system has trade-offs, but at least you'd know what you're trading off. What Microsoft is doing with Windows is part of a larger trend in tech. Every platform is trying to figure out how to monetize user attention and data. Google collects data through search and Android. Apple has been more privacy-focused but still collects data. Meta builds their entire business on surveillance advertising. Amazon tracks you through countless devices. Every company is trying to extract value from users in ways that were unimaginable 20 years ago. But Windows is different in one important way. It's an operating system. It's the foundation of the computer itself. When an operating system starts trying to monetize its users, it changes the fundamental relationship between the user and the device. You're not using Windows anymore. Windows is using you. Microsoft knows this is a sensitive area. They're not advertising this shift loudly. They're implementing it gradually, making small changes that individually don't seem like much. But the direction is unmistakable. Windows is becoming an advertising and data collection platform first, and an operating system second. Whether this ultimately succeeds depends on user response. If people accept it without resistance, then this is the future of Windows. Microsoft will push further. But if enough people push back, if they switch to alternatives, if they demand better, then Microsoft might reconsider. When Windows 8 went too far and users hated it, Microsoft course-corrected with Windows 10. You shouldn't have to hunt through system settings to disable advertisements on an operating system you purchased. You shouldn't have to worry about data collection that's happening by default and buried in terms of service. The operating system that runs your computer should respect you as an owner, not treat you as a product to be monetized. Microsoft has built incredible technology. Windows still powers most of the world's computers, but the company is in a difficult position. Hardware sales are slowing. Software licenses are a mature market. Cloud services are competitive. The easiest source of new revenue is to monetize the billions of existing Windows users through advertising and data collection. That's the financial logic of what they're doing. The Windows you grew up with is changing. Whether you adapt to that change, resist it, or move to something else is up to you. But make that choice with your eyes open.